Welcome in, boys and girls. It's Tuesday. It's 8 p.m. I'm your host, Bud Copeland. Our co-host, actually, let me start over. It's 2 p.m., 2 p.m., Tuesday, 8 p.m. See, this is what happened. Andrew, you're not allowed to leave ever again. Welcome to Divots and Pivots. It's Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. I am your co-host, Bud Copeland, at This Bud's For You, our resident chief of morale, your host, Andrew LeDuc, a.k.a. the real Mr. Mallard. He's off. It's been, I don't know how many years we've been doing this show, 4 years maybe now. And Andrew, you've earned it. I granted him some leave. I think he's up in the White Mountains of New Hampshire somewhere burying a body. We wish him all the best with survival this week. And he'll be back next week to help us kind of pick up the pieces of whatever's remaining when I'm done with you guys. So I hope you're having fun this evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whoever you're with. And if you've tuned in for some high level, in-depth, sports analysis that's going to help you win money and crush it in the DFS portal, I don't know if I've got that for you. If you've been here before, you know the drill. We are here to talk about, discuss, entertain, put out ironic musings, ask some questions, dig into a little bit of golf trivia. And yes, at the end of the show, we will look into my picks for the week. However, without Andrew to challenge me, I'm going to let you all behind the scenes in my other league, and we're going to go through my picks together there. If you've never done this before, Boudreaux has another league, which this year, it's ugly. It's really, really bad. Dave, if you're out there, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm going to be able to really make it to the playoffs. I think we're going to be 2 years in a row missing the playoffs, but that's okay. The game on the course has been trending for Boudreaux, even though we did have a setback recently. So a lot of just negativity coming right out the gates here. See, again, Andrew, I'm the chief of morale, but without you, my leader, I don't know if I'm going to be lost for the rest of the evening. So let's start with opening thoughts. Opening thoughts this week revolve around Charlie Woods. For those who are new, Charlie Woods, son of famous golfer Tiger Woods, he's been in the spotlight a lot recently because he's coming of age right before our eyes, and we're seeing a transformation into a guy who's going from my dad's a professional golfer to I'm being mentored into a life of professional golf, and good for him. I mean, if you have the opportunity, I say chase it. If he doesn't want to do it, Tiger's being a stage dad, that's one thing, but all evidence points to Charlie's the golf sicko. Sam, not so much. His other kid, his older daughter, Sam, she's not really so much because she has a different relationship with golf. Golf took her away from Tiger a lot early on in his career. And he talks about how he kind of needed to be that guy to perform at the level he did. I sometimes push back saying that's not the only way to have excellence. You look at Jack Nicklaus, he was able to kind of balance a lot of stuff off the course with his performance on the course, but not everybody's Jack Nicklaus, not everybody's Tiger Woods. Everybody has to find their own path. So Charlie is following in dad's footsteps in wanting to pursue golf. And we got the first glimpse of it a couple years ago at the PNC Championship in December, which we will see again. It's kind of a parent-child situation, and they used to call it the father-son, and now it's a parent-child, and the player must have won a major golf championship or the Players Championship. It's a really fun event. We saw Charlie come out. He's evolved over the last few years. His swing looks like an amalgamation between Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods. It's kind of scary to watch. And he got a chance to go after, I think it was a Monday qualifier a couple months ago, and he shot like 83. He shot a million or whatever. And people kind of gave it to him. It's not as easy as it looks, all this kind of shit. And I just want to think to myself, he's a dime a dozen. We're going to talk about another Monday qualifier here in a little bit who's stealing the show in Detroit. But Charlie, fell flat on his face with that Monday qualifier thing. And, I'm sure he's just used to living with the shade at this point. But this last kind of advancement for him is a big deal. He qualified for this year's U.S. Junior Amateur. Now, Tiger Woods got the Bobby Jones Award this year from the USGA, and that's kind of that lifetime achievement award from the USGA. And it's in recognition also in part because of Tiger's championships. He has a record tying, along with Bobby Jones, 9 USGA titles. The one thing that Tiger did that nobody else has done is he won basically 6 in a row when he went US Junior, US Junior, US Junior. Then he ripped off 3 U.S. amateurs that culminated with, the fist pump and Steve Scott and then Hello World. And so step one for Charlie Woods, I guess, would be to qualify for one of these USGA events and hopefully, have a good performance. Hell, I'd love to see the guy win it. I think it's a cool story. But the funnier thing for me is where this thing is taking place. It's taking place just outside of Detroit. Detroit's on the mind this week. I mean, the slowest, saddest time of the sports calendar. So it's kind of fitting that Detroit would be the host for sports this week. But Oakland Hills is just outside of Detroit in Bloomfield Hills. Funny fact, I went to a wedding reception at Oakland Hills Country Club once. A very close family friend, the Pazzi family. If you know a Pazzi, tell them I said hello. They were members at Oakland Hills. One of their daughters got married there, and I was lucky enough to go. And all I did the entire time was stand out in the back patio, staring at the golf course, wanting to be out there. But then that was also the same clubhouse that burnt down a couple of years ago. If you remember that on social media, it was everywhere. This magnificently huge structure fire taking down this clubhouse. So Oakland Hills is going to host, the Charlie Woods show, and that's what it's going to be when you have an iconic course like that, which I believe it's one of the anchor sites for the U.S. Open. Don't quote me yet. But when you have an iconic course like that has hosted major championships and Ryder Cups and stuff like that, you're going to get the attention anyway. You sprinkle on top of that anything Tiger related, and it's going to explode. So opening thoughts are just temper expectations. It's super rare for anybody to win these tournaments, let alone have siblings or a father-son thing happen. So the fact that he's qualified, I think, is a victory in and of itself. But that's going to be a good story to keep a finger on the pulse moving forward. Speaking of qualifiers and moving forward, Bujo's got 3 on the books this summer. We got the Mass Amateur, the Mass Bid Amateur, and the Mass Public Links. And for the uninitiated out there, these state tournaments, these state amateurs are basically, just like state elections versus federal elections. The USGA puts on the national events. These are statewide events. But Massachusetts Golf Association has a pretty rich and deep history, obviously, with the country club in Brookline being here. Francis, we met, the history of the game can't be told without the state of Massachusetts. And so it's a real honor to try to go qualify for one of these things. And that's kind of what my goal this summer. And the last few years has been a challenge. And now I'll admit, year 1 was 2 or 3 years ago, and I tried for the Mass Open, and I shot 91. And at the time, I think it was a 1.2 handicap, shot 91. I was not ready at all for the mental shift. We putt everything out, or as my buddy Christian would say, we hit cups when we play golf at the Meadow at Peabody. Shout out the Saturday MTA. Although this weekend's red, white, and blue tees. We'll get to that later. But, we hit cups when we're out there. But when you're under that kind of, I don't know how to explain it, the pressure of there's a little bit more at stake. It's bragging rights. It's to prove it to yourself. It's to prove it to your roommate and or spouse that, yes, all that time wasted on the driving range and the putting green finally did lead to something more than taking a couple of bucks off your buddy. Although I will say there's few things in golf sweeter than taking a few bucks off of your friend. Why else do we play this game? But that first year was very humbling. I missed all 4 cuts that I went for. And then the next year I missed all 4 again. However, this last summer, 2023, I only missed the cut in 2 of the 3 by a stroke. And so going into this summer, I have high hopes, and I had some short-term goals going into the first one, which was the Massachusetts Amateur Qualifier I played in last Thursday. It was 178,000 degrees. It was basically like, Satan's oven on the golf course, but your boy had an umbrella, had a little clip fan from Ryobi, and we stayed cool. We stayed hydrated, but we missed the cut. We missed the cut by a lot of strokes. I think I missed the cut by 12 strokes. I needed to shoot 1 under. No, even would have got us there. I shot plus 11. No doubles, no 3 putts, just out of position way too many times on a course that I did not prepare for. So the lesson learned here was preparation. I never played the course before. I had an opportunity to go out and play it, and I needed to do something else. But even then, I had some plans in my brain after doing a little bit of research, but I listened to my playing partner who had been there a lot and kind of just gave me some local knowledge. What I realized was I was screwing up by trusting his knowledge and mentally not really trusting it or preparing for it. Not that I thought the guy was screwing me over, but he was 60 years old. He just had a different game. And so maybe he had played this course so many times, he was comfortable with shots that I wasn't necessarily comfortable with or wasn't expecting to hit. So it took me about 7 or 8 holes to really settle down. And then on the back 9, I could not convert a handful of really, really good birdie looks. I said no 3 putts on the outset. That was a goal. The goal in the next one is going to be to make some damn putts because we still had too many of them. But at the end of the day, no blow up holes, no doubles. And I really never took my head out of it. Even when I knew mathematically that I couldn't qualify, I didn't just go, oh, fuck it, better luck next time. I tried really, really hard to just go 1 shot at a time, 1 hole at a time. And it allowed me to hit some good shots coming down the stretch. So Next up, Massachusetts Public Links, Massachusetts Amateurs Public Links. This is for any golfers in Massachusetts. Real quick, Massachusetts Amateur is for any golfer in Massachusetts with a, I think it's like 2.4 handicap or better. The Public Links is for anybody who keeps a handicap or does not have playing privileges at any kind of private establishment. So you are a member or you keep your handicap through a public course or a municipal course. That's my territory. Again, the Meadow at Peabody is one of the more fun spots on the North Shore to play golf. It introduced me to New England golf. It's a whole different beast than how I grew up playing, which was kind of bomb it, find it, bomb it, find it. And so next up is the Public Links. That's going to be out at Cyprian Keys. Never played there before. We're going to figure it out. If anybody knows about Cyprian Keys, holler at your boy at thisbuds4ufore on the Instahams. So Bud's quest for the qualifier continues. In other golf news, because it's a big space right now. I was on a podcast, shout out Fairways and Dreams over on the Golfer Gang Network. Jeff had me on to talk about the current state of golf, especially on the heels of Bryson and, everything that's going on there. And he asked the question, what is the current state of professional golf? And my answer is this: it's fine. It depends on what you're looking for and what you're demanding. Jeff admits that he wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants a major level field 15, 20 times a year. We can do it. We can get everybody there. Reality, even with people's schedules, even before all this live stuff was going on, is we weren't getting 100% participation from the top dogs all the time. Granted, at the signature events, perhaps it would be a different story. I don't know. But if people are saying what's the state of it, or when they say it's in bad shape, what do you mean? What are you expecting out of it? People are still watching. There's more options now. I think the state of the game now, the PGA Tour, they might have some cause for concern. Their product isn't exactly growing with the demand for the money and all that kind of stuff. But when people say the state of professional golf, the definition of professional golf has evolved. And so things are fine. And they're actually, if you're looking for more golf and opportunities to engage in different ways and have fun with it, then I think that it's on the up and up, because live golf is entertaining. It is fun. If all you're kind of looking for is the sport in the game and not necessarily quote unquote traditional elite golf, which is still the PGA Tour, and it should be. It's a massive ecosystem, thousands of players, dozens of tours. It's not just the PGA Tour here in the United States. It's a global thing and a global set of partnerships that moves that needle. So yes, PGA Tour might be in a little bit of a, what are we going to do here? But professional golf's great. Live is a wonderful alternative, maybe for the country club adjacent folks who don't necessarily give a rat's rear about the Travelers or signature events or the Players Championship or anything like that. And they just want to see people crush beers, crush balls, make birdies, whatever. So there's that. And then to take it a step further, we have the YouTube golf world just massively exploding. They had a specific Monday qualifier for YouTubers on the PGA Tour this year. It was for the Myrtle Beach event that was opposite the Wells Fargo signature event. And Quail Hollow, I think it's the Wells Fargo. I don't know. It's the Quail Hollow. It's hosted at Quail Hollow. I think it's the Wells Fargo. But opposite of that was Myrtle Beach. And the YouTubers had their own Monday qualifier to see which one of these 16 YouTubers and their massive following was going to get into a PGA Tour event. Well, this last weekend, they did it again. In case you missed it, the YouTube Nation kind of took over French Lick and the Pete Dye course, which is my personal favorite course outside of TPC Sawgrass. I have personal connections there, but I went and played this French Lick, kind of set up the Donald Ross and the Pete Dye a couple years ago. And I got to tell you, it's kind of creeping up now because of this YouTube thing, but I've been preaching it for years. And obviously with the Korn Ferry Tour having their tour championship out this year, they saw something in it as well. This is a hot course. And with its proximity to Indianapolis and Louisville, it's accessible to get out to. I encourage everybody. It's a great buddies trip location, especially with the casino there. But Good hosted a golf tournament, and it was a 2-man scramble, and you had the DOD king out there, and you had Gavin Flo from, he's a US junior he's a PGA instructor, but he's really kind of focused on junior. You had all these really cool people out there playing in a 2-man scramble. Michael Block and his son won it. I think it was his son, might've been his nephew, but Michael Block, Team Block. The block party continues, and it rolled into French Lick, Indiana, and it walked away with a trophy. Blair O'Neill was out there doing interviews with Golf Pass, which is an NBC and, obviously by extension PGA Tour partner. So the ecosystem of golf is growing, and it's in a great position. So when people complain about, golf's in trouble, I hate all of this. I I don't know what to tell you. It's a big world. There's a lot of other things that you could be looking at and focusing on. And if you're asking for unrealistic expectations, then I mean, I don't know what to tell you there. I'm also kind of Pollyanna-ish when I come to this kind of stuff. I was licking my chops when the whole Live PGA Tour divide began, and that was kind of another thing Jeff and I got into is this PGA, PGIF, the PIF and PGA Tour Enterprises deal, is it happening? And yes, I think it's still happening. A year ago, they kind of announced that, they were in talks, and then it's been accelerating. Then the Fenway Group got their slice of the pie. And at first, that's what kind of made John Rahm actually go to Live, because if you back it up a little bit on the PGA Tour Enterprises whole evolution with their talks with the PIF on June, I think it was June 6, 2023, we had the armistice, right? USGA comes out, or it's at the US Open or the Canadian Open the week before the US Open. No more Live Golf lawsuits. And we're going, what? I mean, everybody just whiplash, including the players. You saw it in full swing. Well, part of that whole agreement was kind of this tacit, we will no longer poach your players. Like, we'll no longer actively go after them. The PGA Tour got in legal trouble when they tried to prohibit that. There was kind of some antitrust stuff. That's where one of those lawsuits was going around. So there was an agreement of, we'll stop poaching people while we negotiate. Well, in the original agreement, it did say that the PIF would have kind of right of first refusal to any future investments once this deal is done. And then the Fenway Group gets in there, the money starts flowing, and the scuttlebutt is that kind of pissed off Yasser and the boys to the point of, oh, they're going to go ahead and just start looking for other money before we have this done deal and we figured out our stuff. Okay, then we're just going to, we're going to open our guns back up. We're going to go get John Rahm. We're going to go get Tyrrell Hatton. We're going to take another look at Hideki Matsuyama. I believe Matt Fitzpatrick got another call around that time. That's also another Ricky rumor that floated up. And so that was kind of another one of those moments that flared up, and maybe this deal is falling apart. But the most recent announcements, both from Tiger and the Jay Monahan, basically both said the same thing. We can't negotiate in public, but we are negotiating, and it is moving forward. And I think it's going to happen because all we're talking about is an investment, an injection of money. I haven't read anything. This is just me purely speculating, but I don't see a future where Live all of a sudden becomes part of the PGA Tour universe entity. I think Live, for all intents and purposes, has served its purpose. It was a pawn to get Yasser and his group to the table, for sure. These are big boys. This is big boy baseball. They're managing funds of hundreds of billions of dollars. And so to them, maybe this was just a move the whole time. And once that deal is solidified with the PGA Tour Enterprises, if there is no stipulations for Live might just have to go live or die on its own, accord at that point. They might say, we're not going to pump any more money into you, but whatever you got, have at it. If you can sustain, go for it. And I think there is a world where Live can play a role in professional golf, and actually a meaningful one. Down under, if they really want to target the Australian market with Greg Norman and Cam Smith and, that kind of international, they do have a good feel for the international fun. I don't think they're going to supplant the DP World Tour, because I think the DP World Tour just offers way more opportunity, especially with its partnerships and the alliance that it has with the PGA Tour. But Live could succeed on its own, maybe as a fall tour. And that's what I've been saying from the beginning. Let the PGA Tour play its schedule out. Let's wrap it up before, before Labor Day, get out of the way of the football season. And then let Live have the schedule, have kind of the table. They can do their 54 hole events, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, wrap it up before, NFL on Sunday, and then move on to the next week. And you could have maybe relegation that way. Maybe that's how you fill up half the Live Tour is the last 24 out of the PGA Tour rankings. And then the other half is the first 24 in from the Corn Ferry. And they're going to battle for spots that aren't guaranteed or something like that. But there might be a future. But as far as it being a alternative or a competitor for the PGA Tour, we're still talking about a tour in the PGA Tour that has hundreds of members, hundreds more aspiring members, and then thousands around the globe who want to get to the PGA Tour. Live is still a closed shop, handful of dozen players, incredibly talented players. And again, I've been to a Live event. They're a lot of fun. I think there's a spot for it in golf, but it's not necessarily a competitor. And the way we know that too is that this most recent week, Bryson wins the US Open, and he goes back, and it's way bigger than anything else. It was way bigger than Brooks's PGA. Because of the way that Bryson is approaching the crowds and this new role that he has in golf. But, he said he was a bit of a zombie, and he still was, I think, top 5, maybe T3, something like that. Our boy Tyrrell Tyrrell Hatton, former Boston Common Frog and resident curmudgeon of the PGA Tour. He gets his first win on the Live Tour. Good for him. Winning golf tournaments anywhere is freaking hard. And good for him. And it helped Rombo's Legion 13, secure its third team win, if any of that matters. The real story for me out of Live Nashville was about John Rahm finishing T3. And it's a good sign for him coming off that injury with the toe, because he has stunk it up since he left the PGA Tour. It is what it is. He took the money because he was supposed to be the BSD on the street. And in the last couple of majors, just kind of no show, figuratively and literally. And so if he does that again at the Open Championship, if he doesn't do something big, I think the rumors are going to start flying around. Maybe he's gone the way of Dustin Johnson, where DJ definitely took the bag. He even admitted that he mentally took a year off kind of after getting that check, after grinding his ass off for 25, 35 years, whatever it was. And he just has not recovered that competitive edge. Doesn't mean he won't have it there. Golfers like that, especially at his age, he's not that old. They can get that one more 18 to 24 month stretch where they just play out of their minds and maybe collect another major or two, which is also kind of what I expect out of Tiger Woods at some point in his career. So Liv, good for you. Again, the current state of professional golf, perfectly fine. Now, the question that is floating around in light of the Liv and the signature events all wrapping up is Scotty Scheffler. Scotty Scheffler wins his fourth signature event of the year. There's 8 of these things. They're supposed to be the elevated events, the creme de la creme, the Memorial, Jack's tournament, with Tiger's tournament, Arnie's tournament, then the Travelers. No disrespect, but one of these things is not like the other. So Scotty wins 4 of these. The other winners are, Chris Kirk, which I think that's also because that's a limited field. That was the Century, and that was only like 30 guys, the last year's winners. Rory, Wyndham Clark, and Hideki. So you've got names that win these tournaments. So the signature events did achieve their goal in the sense of it gave us the biggest fields, the best fields, whatever. I heard somebody trying to rumble this is, would Scotty have been on this run if Bryson was still in the PGA Tour? And I immediately want to squash that, even that hypothetical, because you could also ask the question, would Bryson be playing this good of golf had he not taken a break from the PGA Tour and gone on his little wanderlust? Aaron Rodgers had ayahuasca or however you say it. Ricky Williams had the weed. Maybe Bryson just needed his time to tinker in his brain and just decide, I'm going to go be a social media guy, or I'm going to, 3D print my irons, things that maybe he didn't have time to dedicate to. And so he found his happy space. There's a thing from Bob Rotella. Dr. Bob Rotella. He is the guy when it comes to mental toughness in golf. He talks about how happy golfers, it's scientifically proven that you play better when you're happy and having fun. When you're having fun, you're automatically going to perform better. And we saw that out of Bryson. He's been having fun for the last, 18 months or whatever it was. He shot that 58 or 59 at the Greenbrier. And he even says that was that turning point of like, I went 61-58 or 61-59 on the weekend. He's like, and that's when it hit me. This is how it's supposed to feel. And that's also for you amateurs out there, us amateurs out there, for us amateurs out there, it's a reminder that sometimes it's okay to play one-ups, as Christian told me, just play a tee or two up to try focusing on scoring. I mean, who gives a rat's rear if you had to hit 230 or 250 to get to the center of the fairway or to get to your approach shot? Can you convert from there? And so I think that the same argument could say that, well, actually, if Bryson was on the PGA Tour still, maybe he wouldn't be as sharp as he is right now. So I don't like the asterisk talk. I think it's a backhanded passive way to try to say, is there an asterisk on Scotty's run? Because no, there's always somebody missing. There's always somebody hurt. There's always some variable that you can't really account for. Or, I mean, somebody else, some nerd out there is going, actually, you can take the data. Nah. This is one time where I don't trust the stats. You can't just put numbers next to one another, because we saw it with Scotty Scheffler and his good buddy Tom Kim at the Travelers this last week, where you have Scotty even admitted it was kind of mentally tough for him coming down the stretch, because he's like, this is my friend. And so part of me wants him to make it, but part of me wants him to miss it. So, it takes a different mental space to compete depending on the circumstances. And so, no, I don't think it's easy enough just to say, if Bryson was on the PGA Tour, Scotty wouldn't be on this run. So if you hear that, shut it down. Oh my God, it's delicious. ginger lime mule seltzer. It's refreshing. Let's see. One other thing before we kind of move on to this week in golf. The AJGA. It's something we don't talk enough about on this show, and I think it's just because it's the nature of podcasting and golf is if you start talking too much about this obscure stuff, no one really cares. But the AJGA is kind of golf's equivalent of AAU or any other developmental junior league that seems to be a good pipeline or a good proving ground for future pros. And they've gotten some cool partnerships and sponsorships over the last decade or so. Rolex is a big sponsor of theirs now, so is TaylorMade. And now you also are seeing golfers kind of sponsor events. Nelly Corda sponsored event with the AJGA already, and it stands for the American Junior Golf Association, if you could put that together. This week is the Spieth. It's the Under Armour Jordan Spieth, whatever. So one golfer who will not be there from the AJGA ranks, though, is Miles Russell. Miles Russell is 15 years old. He's a lefty. He kind of looks like a mini Kevin Kisner. If you haven't seen him, you'll see it this week. And Miles Russell is playing in this week's Rocket City or Rocket Mortgage Classic. I said Rocket City 1.5 million times, Detroit Rock City. Whole family's from there. Fun fact, besides me, I'm the only non-Michigander. Miles Russell was the AJGA, player of the year. He's won down there. He's going to be a pro. He's probably just going to skip college. He's kind of on that Akshay Bhatia path, both being kind of skinny lefties as well, ironically enough. And incredibly mature for his age. His swing coach talks about how even since he was 6 or 7 years old, the kid's been a sponge, and he just eats up the game. So Miles Russell is on a sponsor exemption at the Rocket Mortgage Classic this week at Detroit Golf Club. And he's going to be one hell of a story to watch. He actually got, I think, a practice round in with Scotty Scheffler, and he's got this demeanor about him. And the reason he's kind of there is because he got in a sponsor's exemption through his AJGA prowess into a Korn Ferry Tour event earlier this season. And then he made the cut and then finished high enough to play in the next week's Korn Ferry Tour event. So he had this little brush with professional golf, in between study hall and social studies. He's probably homeschooled. He's probably smarter than half the other kids his age, but that's neither here nor there. Miles is in the field, and other sponsors exemptions in the field. So he's under a sponsor's exemption. Miles is in the field. Neil Shipley, Goldilocks. If you remember in the Masters in the final round, he played with Tiger Woods, and at the press conference, somebody said, "Hey, what did Tiger say to you?" And he kind of had that looked over. He was the U.S. amateur runner-up last year. That's what got him into the Masters. And got him into the U.S. Open. He was low am at both the Masters and the U.S. Open. That's a small club of folks who've done that. I think it's like Phil Mickelson, maybe Jack Nicklaus, handful of others. I have no clue. But Neil Shipley is in the field also as well under a sponsor's exemption. And he just turned pro. He would have been another amateur in the field, but he just turned pro, and he's coming off of a top 10 in his first pro event. So look out for Neil Shipley. He is a fun story to follow as well. We got Miles, we got Neil. And then last but certainly not least, at this Rocket Mortgage Classic, just fun stories to follow at Detroit Golf Club this week is Nick Benz. And if you did not see this story about Nick Benz, first things first, you've got to go find Monday Q info on Instagram or Twitter or wherever you get your social media scuttlebutt and give them a follow. And then after we hear from our friends at Underdog, I will tell you what Monday Q info's handle told me and everybody else about Nick Benz and why he should be on your short list of favorite golfers this week.
Fantasy Sports Corp and Underdog Fantasy have teamed up to start your fantasy season off in the win column with Best Ball. What is Best Ball? It's quite simply the easiest way to win. No team management, no trades, no waivers. It's their biggest contest ever, and it has only gotten bigger. You simply have to sit and win. You don't even have to set your lineup. Always get your best score every week. Just enter a contest, draft your team, and Underdog will do the rest. What could make this even better? How about free money, up to $100 using our exclusive promo code? Go online now and use the promo code DIVPIV to double your deposit up to $100. You tell them Gingerbread sent you. Good girl.
Good girl, Gingerbread. So Nick Benz at the Rocket Mortgage Classic in Detroit at Detroit Golf Club. Nick Benz works at Golf Galaxy. He is an aspiring professional golfer, and in his interview, he talks about, he has to pick his shots. He can't just go out and play all these Monday qualifiers because it costs a couple $100 each time. And for the uninitiated, the way these golf tournaments work is, you heard me talk about signature events earlier. Signature events are all invitationals or closed kind of access. There's no Monday. I don't think there's Monday queues for the signature events. Certainly, again, not for the invitationals. A lot of other golf tournaments, a lot of other PGA tournaments, and this is where the PGA Tour does have a leg up on Live, is its open and its accessibility to stories like Nick Benz. A lot of PGA Tour events have what are called Monday qualifiers, and as the name would suggest, the Monday of the golf tournament, there's a round of golf, and the low, handful of people get an invitation to that week's tournament. That's a very oversimplified version of it. There's other kind of semantics in there, like there are the pre-qualifiers, which is kind of like the week or the 2 weeks before. You have to prove that you can actually hang. You have to qualify to get into the qualifier. So there's tiers to get in there. But long story short, this is for the folks who are really kind of grinding it out, living out of their cars. As Nick suggested, he didn't even bring a set of clothes to get him beyond today, because it was not beyond his wildest dreams. I think it was his wildest dreams to do what he did today or yesterday at the golf course, which was shoot 65 on a Monday qualifier. This guy works at Golf Galaxy. He's an aspiring pro, but he's never played or qualified for a PGA Tour sanctioned event in his life. And he goes out and he's done okay at this one before. He says he's had some expectations where he's played well at this one or at this golf course. He's from the Indianapolis area, so he's not too far away. And he shoots 65. And so then he's sitting there and the reality starts setting in. This is happening. I'm in a position now to qualify for a PGA Tour event. And nothing is said and done. There's still a bunch of groups out on the course. And at this level, 65 that's kind of what these guys are expecting to shoot again to move on. So he has to sit there and wait and wait and wait. And while he's waiting, he proceeds to have a couple of beers. He's given an interview. He's talking about, this is my second beer. I got to just calm the nerves. This is beyond anything I expected, yada, yada, yada. And then he has to go play in a 5-for-4 playoff. That means there were 4 spots available and there were 5 golfers going out to basically play sudden death until, one guy drops out and the other 4 move on. This took 8 holes. So Nick Benz, after his shift at Golf Galaxy earlier this week or last weekend, goes to wherever his Monday queue is, shoots 65, sits around, pounds 3 beers, and then goes out and plays 8 holes of playoff golf to qualify for the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Nick, you are living everybody's wildest dream. I know you said that this was your kind of, the mountaintop for you. You said, if I go out and shoot 80, it doesn't matter because this is what you were hoping for. But I mean, if you got a 65 just sitting in your back pocket into those circumstances, you can crush a couple of brewskis and then go out and play 8 holes of playoff golf and survive. I'd set my expectations a little bit higher, because I think what you're going to find is at this level of golf, it can be something as simple as a mentality that is the difference between making the cut or finishing inside the top 25 or qualifying for next week's event. You're playing the same sport as everybody else. You hit the ball from here to there. A lot of it is mentality and execution. So, shout out to Nick. We're all with you this week. Do y'all like that? Somebody go ahead and just, if you're listening to this, I'm looking at the US Open Pinehurst caddy guy logo. It's kind of a young gentleman in, looks like blue overalls with some suspenders, red shirt, bucket hat. It's the Pinehurst number 2 guy. My roommate was bagging on it. She said it was too busy. Although sadly enough, at my qualifier, to pour salt in the wound, I did lose my blue camo US Open water bottle that I bought down at Pinehurst. And shockingly, nobody at the Lost and Found had it, because it's a sick ass water bottle. Somebody still saw that and took it home. Hope it treats you well. So look out for Nick Benz at the Rocket Mortgage this week. There's not a whole lot of depth to this tournament. It's only been around since 2019. It was kind of a filler event. And I don't know if it's going to survive much longer. Fun fact, Bryson did win this event back in, I think it was 2020 or 2022, somewhere around there. So, there's your Bryson comment or connection for this tournament, but there's just not a lot of gravitas to it. The Detroit Golf Club is a Donald Ross design. It's a very old course. It's a great, it's very well respected amongst the locals, but you're going to see 20 to 25 under again this week. This is another one of those golf tournaments where it's going to be a putting contest and a birdie fest. And when you're making your picks, you can't really outsmart yourself. Whoever is either statistically the highest or who is just really on a heater right now, go with the hot hand, because there's not going to be a lot at this golf course that tricks people up, because even though it's a Donald Ross course, you're not going to see the runoffs around the greens like you did at Pinehurst or anything like that. It's the local football players and celebrities, this is the club where they go to. So it's definitely accessible to, a good golf game. So when you bring in elite level golf, they're going to tear this thing apart again this week. And I do think that this is going to be the kind of tournament that's on the chopping block when the PGA Tour re-examines the whole picture after getting this money from the PIF. Not every week is going to be a signature event, but after looking at the signature events this year, it does beg the question. And I saw this, I'm straight up ripping off this question from Trent over at Barstool Foreplay, because they need my help and my help exposure. Just trying to give credit where credit's due. He put the musing out there. Should we have a rotating signature event on the PGA Tour? And 1,000,000,000,000,000,000% yes. If you look at the signature events this year, we had the Century, which the Tournament of Champions, I kind of see that. I kind of understand that, where if you're going to if you won on the PGA Tour last year, here's your bonus. Here's your extra bonus. One of the 8 is going to be just for you. We're going to have 30 guys out. Maybe not Hawaii. Let's get it out of Hawaii. I'm sick of those resort courses. But the Century, for sure. Then you obviously got to have the Memorial, which is Jack's tournament, Arnie's tournament, Bay Hill, and Tiger's tournament, the Genesis. So there's half of them. The rest, Quail Hollow, absolutely. It's a major venue next year at the PGA. It's hosted a President's Cup. It's going to host more stuff. Quail Hollow in that tournament is a perennial, it takes your A game to win there. So you do see the cream rise to the top. Rory wins there. JT wins there. Wyndham wins there. So you keep the Wachovia or the Wells Fargo or whatever the hell we're calling the Quail Hollow event this year. But then it does beg the question, is the RBC Heritage, is that a signature event? Don't get me wrong. I like it, and I like the history there, but you got that, you got the Charles Schwab Challenge, and then you got the Travelers. I think that you should start rotating these. Those 3 should be rotated along with, bring in the John Deere, maybe bring back the Western Open. Maybe the Honda down in South Florida gets some love, or it used to be the Honda. I don't even know what we're calling it anymore. It's the CJ now, because I think CJ sponsors, or CJ Cup sponsors, so many things in golf. But floating signature event, I'm here for it. I think that also would force some of these golfers to go play in some of these events in these communities that are golf communities, but that don't necessarily get the love of a PGA Tour event in full force. So I think that's a good idea there. I don't think we just add more, because if everything becomes a signature event, then nothing's a signature event. And much to the chagrin of my boy Jeff from earlier, we're never going to get 14 weeks of golf with these major caliber fields. You're going to get 4 majors a year. You get 4 majors a year. And then these 8 signature events from the PGA Tour. So you have 12 opportunities to see some high level, high caliber golf. Now, the fact that a couple dozen of the key golfers decided to opt out of those signature events doesn't mean that I think it's cheaper. I think just we're going to see some more tweaks to it, such as a cut. I think the no cut thing just kind of rubs me the wrong way, especially after the PGA Tour Live debacle. And we said, hey, how can you have 54 holes and no cut? And then the next year, the PGA Tour is like, you know what? We're not going to have a cut for all these events. Like, what are we doing here? I do see, for the players' benefit, how a guaranteed check is nice, but you can still do that with a cut. You just make those guaranteed checks party gifts for the folks who get cut. I think even when you go to Augusta or some of these other majors, you get $25K just even for showing up and playing. Not an appearance fee, but it's like here's your participation trophy. Thanks for coming. So move them around, introduce the cuts, and at the end of the day, who gives a rat's rear if 4, 5, 6 guys decide to opt out? The world of professional golf is such a huge and deep pool of talent that when, even if next year Scotty Scheffler signs a check and goes away, I hate to say it, there's another Scotty somewhere. Now, if Scotty continues this for about 5, 6, 7 years, then we're talking about Tiger territory. snapping off a 7-month run, or although for Scotty, it's been more like a 27-month run, but snapping off these runs is not unheard of. What Tiger did was he did it for a decade. But people are real quick to forget, Curtis Strange going back-to-back U.S. Opens the way that Brooksy did. Nick Faldo just having a freaking go of it for about 6 years. Some of these guys have had these snaps of greatness. I'm going to hold my hands. I don't know what to do with my hands anymore. Some of these guys have had snaps with greatness, like we're seeing from Scotty. And statistically, some of these things from Scotty are just astronomical. But if he were to go away next year, somebody else is going to do this. We might get a year or two of mediocre wins. Or when I say mediocre, I don't necessarily mean that the quality of golf is. I just mean that not the cachet of the name. It does kind of make a difference when Joe Shit the Ragman gets his first win. The first win story is always nice, but names move the needle. So if Scotty were to go away, the void would be filled. Not immediately, but it wouldn't be that long. We've already filled it with John Rahm. Just like I said, he's bitching about drones. He's complaining about the length of the golf tournaments. Everything he signed up for and cashed the check for, he is now complaining about, and it's affecting his on-course performance. So I don't want to poo-poo the PGA Tour and say that it's not in a great place, but I will say that the Rocket Mortgage maybe a little, it's not quite Barracuda territory or Barbasol. But I don't think you should expect much. And actually, after 6 or 7 years, I don't think we should expect much more Rocket Mortgage from the Detroit Golf Club. But that's just me speculating. I did just make a comment about Joe Shit the Ragman getting his first win. I don't want to also belittle. Earlier this year we had a stretch where we had a bunch of first-time winners, and people were pointing that as a weakness. Where are the heavy hitters? These are the new heavy hitters. That's the point of the PGA Tour. Is we have hundreds of guys who at any given moment could be the next heavy hitter. Matthew Pavon comes out of nowhere, on our radar. He's a French golfer. He wins for the first time on the PGA Tour. Then he's in that Bryson group because he's trying to finish top 4, 5, 6 or whatever, so that he can maintain that position. There are a lot of really talented golfers out there, and in the world of professional golf will go on. Now, last but certainly not least, if you've been hanging around this long, God, kudos to you. Do two things. First, go to your Instagram and follow at thisbuds4u, FORE. Anheuser-Busch is not paying me, and they trademarked their own saying. So, one day we'll see. Do that. Then over on the TikTok, the Twitter, and the Instaham. Do we call it Twitter? We still have the Twitter logo I can see on our banner, but X. Go on over to X. Going to give it to you. Instaham and YouTube and TikTok. Find us at Divots and Pivots. You can't get any easier than that. Divots and Pivots, kind of catchy. If you can't tell, I'm the divot. He's the pivot. And then last but certainly not least, pardon me, at TSPN. What is there? That Sports Podcast Network. Damn, derped out there for a second thinking about whether or not we're still calling it X or Twitter. So go over there, give them a click, give them a follow. You heard me earlier today. I was pleading to my boy Dave saying, I don't know what we're going to do. I need to make up some ground this week. I have my own picks to make. The way we do it in our other league is 4 tiers. We use Bovada odds. Don't know what that means. Apparently it's an odds for a bookmaker or whatever from Vegas, but we use Bovada odds. The guy who runs the league, find yourself a fantasy sports league like I have found in Justin and the way he runs this. We have interactive Google Sheets that automatically update in real time, showing projections for everything under the sun. There's 27 or 30 of us in it. It's great. It's wonderful. And then you get a really nice email each week with a recap and basically calling you out, though. Like, he was not shy to pointing out that I missed out on the Scotty train for the first half of the season, which is why I am now sitting at like 24 out of 26 fantasy golf people. But we're going to turn it around starting this week. We've got the Detroit Rocket Mortgage Classic. We're going to make up some more ground at the Open Championship, the Scottish Genesis, or the Genesis Scottish Open's right around the corner. So some opportunities to make up some ground and hopefully get in the top 16 and make a run to the playoffs. But we're going to do this live. We've never done them, not live. Well, if you're watching live, you're getting it. But anybody else in the podcast, you might be getting this too late. I put my same key 3 into Fantasy National. Shout out to the folks at Fantasy National. Mooseonomics will help you with your picks. But every week, I don't try to outsmart myself. I go ball striking, putting, tee to green, just kind of that overall snapshot of who is playing well. And top of my model is Tom Kim. After coming off of last week, the way he finished that close, the praise from Scotty, the kind of presence under pressure. I look at my tier one and I got to go with Tom Kim. Cannot have it any other way. Got to lean on that. The other options are Cam Young. I will say Cam Young would be a sneaky good pick this week as well, coming off that 59. And then you saw the wheels kind of not come off because he still finished strong, but he definitely, there's a fly in front of my face. He definitely shot 59, then came out guns blazing the next day with 2, 3, 4 birdies, just to go right down there and be a leader. And then I think he had a triple somewhere. But Cam Young, look out for him. Minwoo Lee, I don't buy it in the whole let him cook thing. Scotty's last name is literally Scheffler. Like, this is, stop it. Akshay Bhatia, he was in that final group, the lefty. And again, I think this is the kind of tournament where he's won twice now on the PGA Tour, and he's got the game. Obviously, he showed it last week at a signature event. Maybe he's going to come out and just pick one of these up. These guys win the 1, 2, 3 of these before they actually break through on the bigger stage. Steven Yeager, you can't go wrong with him. He's been trending all year. And then Taylor Pendrith, Mav McNeely, and Alex Noren round out tier one. We're going with Tom Kim. No, I'm not going through every tier like that because there's way too many players. But in tier two, I think I'm going to go with Ricky Fowler. Ricky Fowler, broke his losing streak here last year. He needed a birdie on the 72nd hole to force the playoff. He got it. He goes on to win it. And sometimes when you got that good juju going for you, the good memories, and you're a player of his caliber, because he's another one too who's kind of looking at, am I just going to ride off into the sunset with my players championship and my shrug photo from the Ryder Cup, or are we going to see maybe a third act from Ricky Fowler? I think we're going to see it. I'm going to ride with Ricky this week. Tier 3, this is where we get down to names like Luke Clanton, who's an amateur from Florida State. He was the guy who finished behind Neil Shipley for low am at the U.S. Open. You got guys like that, Bo Hostler, Kevin Yu. Kevin Yu he had some brushes with good golf earlier this year, but when you get down into tier 3, you really have to just kind of go with your gut. And right now, my gut is telling me to go with Eric Van Rooyen. He's a birdie machine, and this is a birdie machine kind of course where you're going to have to make a ton of them, and he can rattle them off. Also, he just qualified for the Olympics. We'll close with Olympic thoughts here in a couple of minutes. Tier 4, I don't know. I think we're just going to, Webb Simpson's down here. That's when you get down to tier 4, there's like 70 players. You just go for a name that you think is relatively attractive. It's kind of like Charlie Hoffman. If this was the Waste Management, I would probably be picking Charlie Hoffman because he always seems to show up for the Waste Management. But instead, I'm going to go with Johnny Vegas. Johnny Vegas always is a name that I think floats up to the top. And for the longest time, I thought he was American for no other reason than my own ignorance. And then I saw the flag next to his name and I thought, Jonathan Vegas, is that the same as Johnny Vegas? It is. We have submitted. And like I said, Olympics are around the corner. And I want to close with just a couple of thoughts about Olympic golf. 2016, we get golf back in the Olympics. If you don't know the whole story of Olympic golf, I'm not going to bore you with the details other than to say it was in the Olympics in the early 1900s. Then it was out of the Olympics. There's a cool backstory as to why they bailed on it with the London Olympics. It had to do with the Open Championship, had to do with the Amateur Championship and the R&A and rules. It's a pretty cool story, but it goes away. It comes back in 2016. We get it down in Rio. I want to say Justin Rose won the gold that year. Ricky won the bronze, maybe, or no, he was just an Olympian. I don't think he finished anyway. And then in 2021, the 2020 Olympics in Japan, Nelly and Xander do the American sweep. Now, the teams just got announced after, these last couple of majors for both men's and women's golf. And the way they do it, it's going to keep changing because that's the way that they always do these things. They're going to keep evolving with what they hear and the performance. At the end of the day, it's a television show. Yes, it's a sports competition, but they need ratings, they need eyeballs, they need people to show up. So they got to keep configuring this thing to make it exciting. I've heard that, maybe in as soon as the LA Olympics, we might see something of like a mixed doubles format, or where you're going to have, 72 holes, 2 rounds of best ball, 2 rounds of alternate shot, co-ed. I'm here for that. I think that the Olympics should lean into golf as an area of growth and not just go, well, if the people don't like 72 holes stroke play of 60 players, maybe we should back out. I think you're going to tap into something because it is an evolving game. So the Olympic team gets announced, and it's Wyndham Clark, Xander Schauffele, Colin Morikawa, and Scotty Scheffler. Noticeably absent, especially after winning the U.S. Open, is the current Captain America, Bryson DeChambeau. And of course, then starts the chatter, is the system flawed if that guy's not on the team? And of course, some other players from Live Golf, Dean Burmester, is really Brandon Grace, but he was talking about how Louis Oosthuizen and Dean Burmester not being on the South African team shows that this is flawed because they're the best guys. Eric Van Rooyen and Christian Bezuidenhout are names that you consistently see on the top page or the top 2 pages of a leaderboard on the PGA Tour week in and week out. So do respect, Mr. Grace. Your head's up your rear. It's another one of those live moments of you think that the golf that you're playing and competing in over there is paramount to what's going on the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour. It's not. And you voluntarily gave up those world ranking points for whatever lifestyle that you want to live. And this is one of the consequences of it. Doesn't mean that they're going to consistently do it the way they're doing it now, which is essentially the top 15 in the world get invited. And if your country has up to 4 players, you can send all 4. That's what we're doing. And then the rest of the field basically gets filled out with 2 players from each country that can qualify and send folks, and as determined by their world golf rankings. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's going to be a growing sport for the Olympics. And Wyndham Clark came out and he said something that I thought was poignant. There's a word for you. And it had great perspective, and it also demanded some patience. Basically what he said was, for the longest time, the Ryder Cup, it was the biggest honor, the biggest event for golf as far as international play is concerned. And he said, but it is limited, it's America and in Europe. And in a way, the Olympics only happening every 4 years is a bigger stage and a bigger honor and a bigger deal when it comes to representing your country. Some golf purists, I bet, will poo-poo that because the Ryder Cup is the Ryder Cup. Well, the Ryder Cup's the Ryder Cup, and the President's Cup's the President's Cup. But I think Wyndham Clark has a point when he says Olympic golf is the biggest thing in international golf. And I think they will continue to tweak the qualifications, the necessary. I could see this becoming another major in the sense of, forget, every country gets an equal shot. We're just going to take the top 100 in the world and do a true kind of individual Olympic major. That has this potential, and they could have that spin off with the mixed doubles and best ball and alternate shot and all you want. But he has a point. And just because it's new and it's different and it's incredibly limited doesn't mean that it's incredibly poor quality. It's rare. Why are diamonds valued? Don't at me with the whole that's not true rarity kind of bullshit, but the principle remains the same. There's fewer opportunities. So when something like, hey, do you want to go be an Olympian? Saying that out loud, I'm an Olympian. I represented my country in the Summer Olympics. I won an Olympic medal. The number of people, especially in the game of golf currently, and then even moving forward, who are going to be able to utter those words is such a small pool that Wyndham Clark has a point. Olympic golf is the biggest thing in international golf. It's going to be the biggest thing in international golf moving forward. Final point on this. A couple of years ago, and not to bring it back to the Ryder Cup, the Ryder Cup European captain, can't remember which one it was. I want to say it was whoever whipped our ass in France. Speaking of the Olympics, it's at Le Golf National, where we got our just boat raced in 2018 by the Tommy Fleetwood, Franco Molinari show. But whoever was the captain that year, I believe, he had numbers that were stitched onto each one of his players' bags. And it was whatever number player they were in the history of the European Ryder Cup team. So these players were like numbers 161, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get the point. And then he talked about the number of people who have been to outer space, not to the moon, maybe not even to orbit, but who have actually just been to outer space. And he pointed out that there have been more people to go to outer space than have played in a Ryder Cup representing their country, or, their continent, whatever you want to call it, their side. And so if you take that same mentality and that same logic and you apply it to Olympic golf and how rare these opportunities are going to be, and how, 40 years from now, we're going to be talking about this is the 16th or whatever, 14th gold medal in Olympic history. You're going to see more and more guys wanting to rearrange. Even Louis Oosthuizen said he passed in the early goings, but most of that was schedule related, really didn't have anything to do with any kind of personal distaste or whatever for the Olympics. It just wasn't for him at the time. I got a feeling all it's going to take is Scotty winning this, or as long as a big name wins this year, I think we're going to have that momentum going where the Olympics is going to be the place to be every 4 years, just like that sports podcast network is the place to be every Tuesday night, 8 p.m., Divots and Pivots. Thank you so much for the folks who stuck around. Thank you so much to our friends at Underdog. Thank you so much to my boy Nate at Acorn Hills. Don't forget that promo code TBFY15 for 15% off. That's this bud's for you, TBFY15. And I'm going to say it just one time for Andrew, because I know that he would be incredibly, incredibly sad if I didn't, but stay classy out there.